Hi guys, this is Claire and I'm back today with some more yummy cursed content. You may remember a few weeks ago I made a video wherein I tried drawing some Gen 1 Pokemon using only my mouse in MS Paint. Well, we got a couple comments from some truly maniacal people that I should redo that horrifying challenge, but instead of using MS Paint, I should make super ultra high definition versions of the sprites. So here I am. You guys asked, and I'm delivering. Before we dive in, I want to clarify that the format of this video will be a little different from the other one. Because each of the paintings I did for this video took quite a while, it just wasn't realistic for me to record live commentary. Plus, I don't think it would have been very fun for you guys to listen to hours upon hours of regretful sobbing. Anyway, I've selected 3 Pokemon from the original Pokemon Red and Green Pokédex to render to the utmost of my ability. My goal was absolutely not the creation of an aesthetically pleasing piece, but rather a faithful adaptation of the proportions and spirit of each individual sprite. Each recording is sped up by about 4,000%, and I'll provide a little bit of explanation of my process and feelings over each one. Real quick before we get this awful party started in earnest, please take a moment to check out our sponsor, Inked Gaming. They have a huge variety of TCG gaming merchandise, much of which is designed by independent artists, plus board games, hoodies, and more. Check them out with the link in our description, especially if you're hyped for the new Pokemon TCG Sword and Shield boosters, and don't forget to use the offer code Subjectively10 for 10% off your entire order at checkout. Alright, let's do this. The first sprite I selected was Mankey. I think what drew me to this sprite was the combination of its overall goofiness and the logistical horror of its skeletal structure. Its stance, also, which reads to me like a combination of attempted intimidation and a cry for help, seemed perfect for the tone of this video. Mankey was also a pretty easy starting point because I could pretty clearly picture the fur and skin textures I would need to render to make it work. As some of you probably know, a lot of my freelance work involves painting portraits of people's animals, so the visual language of fur texture was something I could render pretty easily without reference. For the limbs, I just tried to copy the original sprite's proportions as much as possible, and decided based on the sprite's color palette that they would probably be pretty fleshy. Jack pointed out about halfway through Mankey that what I was reading as Mankey's screaming, fanged mouth was actually supposed to be the pig nose that appears in later iterations, but at that point it was too late to turn back. Also, I thought that was also pretty fitting, regardless. Towards the end of this painting, I use a technique popular in matte painting and commercial artwork to superimpose texture on painted surfaces. All of the textures I sample in this video were sourced through the search engine CC Search, which is a great tool for finding images licensed under Creative Commons for free commercial usage. Once you've got a texture, Photoshop has a ton of tools that can help to match the colors and values to your painting, and then it's a simple matter of integrating the texture with transparencies and painterly marks. And before anyone asks, the texture is from a picture of a naked mole rat, despite what it may look like. Next up is Charmander. I thought Charmander was a natural choice, not only because of its iconic nature, but also because I think the world deserves to see its ugly duckling phase. If I'm being honest, ignoring the head, Charmander 1.0 isn't that bad. Outside of some slightly misshapen limbs and a bizarre growth sprouting from the back of its neck, it's kind of cute. And then we look at its face. Its giant eyes are so strangely placed on its bizarrely bulbous head. I knew I had to turn this plucky little guy into a high-def monstrosity. Unlike with Mankey, I needed to look at some reference for rendering scales and lizard-like anatomy. I was looking mostly at bearded dragons since I know a few people who keep them as pets, and their scales seem to be about in the right color range. Like many lizards, bearded dragons' bodies are covered by a combination of hard scales and elastic skin, so I tried to capture a similar physiology around Charmander's joints, which otherwise would have looked even more stiff and immobile than they already do. Like in the previous picture, I also incorporated some sampled texture to make Charmander look as realistic as possible. While painting around and incorporating the scale texture, I figured out that using a subtle drop shadow on clusters of gritty brush marks could create really convincing three-dimensional scales. This helped to save a lot of time while rendering the full body. For the tail, I also sampled a flame texture that I then painted over to really cement the idea that this godforsaken creation could exist in the real world. And I've saved the best for last, or worst for last, depending on how you look at it. Behold Mew. With Mankey and Charmander, I already had a pretty good idea of what sorts of textures I'd be rendering before I actually started each painting. That part was pretty easy considering I had some real-life animals to look at that each Pokemon was clearly inspired by. Mew, however, was a little different. I know that Mew and Mewtwo are both very fetus-like in concept, but capturing the essence of a fetus in the bizarrely grotesque form provided to me by Pokemon Red and Green was certainly a challenge. Additionally, I know a lot of modern interpretations of Mew give it cat-like features, so I wanted to incorporate some feline characteristics into this design as well. To compromise, I referenced Sphinx cats and sampled textures from rats with thinning fur. I decided that Mew's body would be mostly veiny skin with sparse patches of fur and whiskers. Additionally, I felt beady rodent-like eyes would be the best translation of what the sprite describes. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments if I should do another video like this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.